Hello, I'm Karen Jefford. Thank you for joining the 7+1 series. Today is step 3, business within business. This step is really important because it's about what's happening behind the scenes, because your organization is a bit like an ecosystem. If things aren't aligned internally, it's going to show externally. One of the biggest misconceptions I see whenever I work with charities is that partnerships and income sit within one team. They feel, oh, that's the fundraising department's priority. But the reality is your entire organization and every person within it shapes how you're experienced externally. So from every conversation you have, every email you send, every interaction you have, that's there and then where the challenges can begin, because if they aren't aligned internally, it's going to show externally. And often this is where it gets really frustrating and where things start to get diluted, because from a leadership perspective, you feel like you're saying the same thing again and again, but it's not quite landing and it gets frustrating, and the consistency there isn't there across the organization. Alessandro, from your perspective, that internal misalignment, when it shows up externally, what damage can be done?
You use a very key word, which is ecosystem. So if I need to think about and need to suggest how an ecosystem works, what are the strengths of an ecosystem, but also what are like the negative side when we are not leveraging the strength of an ecosystem. And this is like how misalignment internally show up externally. So the first one is a lack of adaptability. A lack of adaptability, in particular to changing circumstances when our confidence is low. So when we say like internally, there are two different types of internally. One is like ourself, as Alessandro, as Karen, and the other one internally within the same organization or the same charity. So if there is no confidence, in particular confidence about telling the same story, telling what's the purpose, what is our vision, what are the resources that are necessary for us as a charity to grow, that level of confidence is low when there is lack of adaptability within the organization, within the charity. In particular, in a period like the one that all of us are living, where there are so many different variables that they're gonna change and influence the way that we operate. So one of my top suggestions is to slow down and pause and think, how can we become more adaptable in order to make our ecosystem, the ecosystem could be everyone that is going to interact with, for example, your charity, in a way that no matter the circumstances, we are able to be resilient, to be consistent and persistent with our operations. So adaptability should be one of the elements within your organization, within your charity, that you want to use as the edge for survival and growth over time.
I love, Alessandro, that you used the word resilience there. Sorry, because often within charities, they're depleted with, not depleted, but they haven't got enough staff to go round. So I often say when I work with charities, if Lucy, John was to leave tomorrow, what would break? Where is knowledge undocumented? Because often that relationship is one-on-one. And, is there reliance on heroic rather than structure? And you and I often talk about the importance of structure. So, resilience is really key. So I'm really pleased that you've raised that.
And resilience also comes from consistency. I usually say consistency, be persistent, and be in the right place, in the right room is essential. to grow a business. And as you just mentioned, when you don't have a structure, you can't be consistent. When you don't have a structure, you cannot be resilient or persistent. And what is like how we project to other people externally, but also internally, is our response time is really, really slow. So when there is no structure, there is no consistent and no persistence, and we are not resilient, we also slow down our response. The response to an email, the response to an opportunity. And I always share that speed is the new currency. So that is the reason why we can use automation AI, not to substitute our presence, our vitality, or our energy, is to understand what is the structure, what is the infrastructure, for example, that we can use in order to increase the speed of our response. That is really, really important. And another very key point is not just the adaptability in order to build the confidence. It's not just the structure to be more persistent and consistent, but also the lack of internal clarity. When there is no clarity into your mind as Alessandro, Helen, Karen, as a human being, but also the clarity within the same organization, that is going to reduce what we call like cognitive capacity, the energy. Your mental energy is gonna reduce your ability to go through what is called high-level thinking, a strategic thinking. And what is the common result or outcome? We tend to emulate what other people do. When we don't have energy because we feel flat, we try to go to the easiest path. And the easiest path is to, rather than be more strategic, more unique, is looking around and see what other people are doing, what other charities are doing. And we emulate, we do exactly what they do. We use exactly the same marketing tools. We do exactly the same marketing activities. And you know already what might happen. You sound exactly the same. So rather than try to stand out in a very crowded, very competitive market, competitive for resources, in particular for a charity, you look, you sound, you smell exactly the same. So it's very, very important to just recap, to be adaptable, to be consistent and build the resilience. And it's not something that you do overnight. You need to have a structure, and you need to go through the structure or this kind of mental gym on a daily basis, but also create the clarity. And the clarity allowed you to have the mental space, the cognitive ability to be strategic and to go through high-level thinking. Look at from an altitude point of view and know exactly what to say yes and what to say no.
So to recap, this step, business within business, step 3, is absolutely about structure. It's looking at how you live and breathe what you do internally, how it shows up externally. And we'll look at alignment between delivery and fundraising, between trustees and your leadership team, CEO, and between ambition and capacity.